is a can you see this?
Oh yeah,
This,
koala bear knows the way.
yeah,
Okay.
so the koala bear knows the way. So this was a book I wrote about. I know.
Oh really? You did this one?
Yeah, I wrote it about 5 years ago, I
Oh,
think.
fantastic.
I,
Can you post it?
I can, yeah. Well, I could probably email it to you. How about that?
Great. That's great. Thank you.
So the issue with it is, or this was my first book, is what I'm trying to say. So like some of the, I mean, I've been reading back over it tonight just because I thought some of the ideas were kind of relevant to the torsion kind of concepts we were talking about, torsion physics, and so some of the language in it is not. Sometimes some of the sentences just run on, but otherwise most of it's pretty reasonable or readable. So it's more the information in it anyway that I'm trying to get at. So this is like kind of a study into perceptual visual things that you might have like before going to sleep or something. And I saw this like concept of like a swirling vortex or like an actual vision of it turning into like scenes, like a dream. So I thought that was interesting, and you kind of see it a lot in the idea of the vortex traveling into other dimensions kind of thing. So you have it in Alice in Wonderland and all of these things. So it's kind of a thing in our subconscious mind that this is a sort of a gateway into other realms, if you like.
You are quoting Hindu text also. Sveteshwara, the Upanishad. Yeah, you are quoting Upanishad.
That's right. So this is from the Upanishad. So it's like how the Brahmin, right, would meditate, and they'd first see like a mist, then a smoke, sun, a wind, fireflies, a fire, lightnings, a clear crystal, and a moon. So those are just the stages before attaining full enlightenment. And this was prior to like the Buddhist.
Yeah, I have seen some of it, myself.
Cool. Yes, I've meditated as well. Sometimes you see like the stars or like little points of light.
Yeah, very much.
Or and then you can see fire. I think I got up to about, I don't know if I got the whole way here. I think I saw them, but I didn't see them in the same order.
Yeah, that's true. As a physicist, we ask questions. I ask questions, and that interrupts the thing, But
no, you can tell. This is very informal. I'd like to keep it that way. So this is in Mesoamerican civilizations as well. Like the ruling priest classes would use obsidian mirrors. So they're completely black mirrors, but they look into them and divine by seeing smoke, and then out of the smoke they would see visions of the future. So again, we have this idea of mists and vortices, a perceptual thing that allows for visions either of other realities or future realities, possible realities. And then in a book by Reverend Robert Kirk called A Secret Commonwealth of Elves, Fauns, and Fairies, he talks about these Sith or fairies. They call, this is an Irish term called the good people, which is the Sluma. It would seem to prevent the dint of their ill attempts, for the Irish used to bless all they fear of harm, and are said to be of middle nature betwixt man and angel, as were demons thought to be of old, of intelligent, studious spirits and light, changeable bodies, like those called astral, somewhat of the nature of a condensed cloud, best seen in twilight. So this idea of a condensed cloud, so even these like spiritual forms would be like condensing out of this kind of mist in the twilight hours, and the twilight hour being like the gap between the two worlds. It's another concept. So you could have this idea, because I think there was paranormal investigators used to talk about how ghosts formed, and they talk about mists collating into like orbs, that orb phenomenon, and then into bright lights, and then into full figures. And that is, again, like when you meditate, you see like mists forming into bright points of light, and then or like swirling and creating visions and stuff. So we have this in Africa as well, similar similar accounts of like strange beings coming out of vortex mists kind of thing and turning into balls of light. So these are other kind of things you can see, like visions before falling asleep, and it's, in this one it's like gray bits of particulate falling on your eyes, sort of occluding all your vision, and then the dreaming starts. And I relate this to I don't know how to pronounce this, old Luke Koje, the Sandman who has an umbrella over the sleeping child and drops do you know this idea of they drop
is that Latin or loco? Is that Latin or French or something?
I think it's Dutch, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, okay.
Sandman, Northern European myth of the Sandman. I think it is Dutch, but I could be wrong about that. It's been a while since I looked into this, but he like sprinkled dust in the eyes of children to make them fall asleep and have dreams, and you'd see the dreams all on top of the umbrella here. So these are the pleasant dreams that children have, you know, sort of. And so, yeah, sprinkling dust in the eyes of the sleeping child. So I think, let me think. I'm just scrolling through here to find the next. So then there's a documentary about fairies actually, but in it I noticed, do you know when you like look at a video footage and or even the TV in your house, the old cathode ray tube CRT TVs, where it's like a broiling mist of particles, you know? You know the way television cameras work, they sort of collect radiation and they collect it, it's all like
pixels.
Yeah, it's all kind of moving around like a mist. So if you like record stuff again in the evening using digital cameras that can see that, if you use like a low resolution, you can see a lot of noise in the image. And if you look at those, sometimes that noise can coalesce into bright points of light. So there may be actually a way using technology to study this phenomenon outside of the human mind, you know. But at the moment, that's something I might do in the future, but I haven't really sat down and done a huge amount of work on it. But we do have in 1920s, this is back to more perceptual work, a German American psychologist named Heinrich Kluver. I think he gave doses of a psychoactive compound called mescaline to a number of volunteers and recorded their experiences. So basically, these are the kind of things they saw, and they're called form constants. So traveling through the kind of, I think he called that a roll or something, traveling through tunnels. And then here we kind of see this web pattern or hexagonal tunnels. And this is kind of like Sandman's umbrella here, number 4, you know?
It looks to me like a web, like spider's web.
I know, but you know, you kind of think of even an umbrella has a kind of a web-like thing. But that was just a comparison I was drawing. But exactly, like I think they were drawing comparisons to these objects. So essentially, these are the kind of patterns that people see before falling asleep, before when taking mescaline, and obviously back in the day there was some religious importance connected to them. We're not sure what they are, what those religious things are, but according to Cowan and Ermentrout, they were looking for linear structures in the eye, I think, or in the cells of the V1 region of the visual cortex, and they found noisy interference patterns called planforms. These planforms were pattern fields of straight lines, lattices, and grids. Experiments into how V1 deals with information revealed that it transforms straight lines into curved ones and vice versa. So basically it's applying a log Z transformation from the hypercolumns, the kind of linear structures in the eye, and it does So it changes straight lines into curved lines. So you can basically undo this transformation by just undoing a polar coordinate transformation. I'm going to move on from that because that's just the sort of the, how do you say, the background to this. But I want to make sure I'm not skipping over anything too important.
How many pages are there? How many pages are there in the book?
224.
Oh, fair enough.
Yes, so this is like work. This was 15 years of research into dreaming that I did, dreams and perceptual effects.
You are still in your 20s, right?
No, I'm not.
You are in the 30s?
I'm nearly in my 40s, yeah.
Oh. So you after, so you did bachelor's and then you had a long time before you started your master's. Is that it?
Oh yeah, a very long time. Yeah,
but high school and bachelor's you did continuously, right?
Yeah. So okay, so I'll keep going. Just need to. There's a whole section on other universes, which was kind of the whole point that you could, by going into your subconscious mind, you would be able to find like information about things that were like far from where you are, like sort of knowledge about the universe that is hidden, I suppose. Yeah. Okay, just getting, because it's kind of the end of the book, I think, that contains the points to do with vortices and traveling. Yeah, we're getting there. There's another very long dream, and then we're nearly there. Dream and dawn, things. The Nine Unknown, that's another Indian, I don't know if you call it myth or a legend. The rulers of the world were the Nine Unknown. Have you heard about them?
Yeah, I am not into that much. I don't.
Okay, it's just stories. Okay, I think we're nearly there. Oh, there's some mathematical fractions from a dream I had one time. Sort of strange concepts. Let's get to the. Here we go. So there's a guy called Bruce Gernon who had an experience when in 1970 he was flying a Beechcraft Bonanza A36 from Andros Airport to Miami Beach. And along the way, he encounters this enormous cloud, which completely surrounds the airplane. It's about 20 miles in diameter, this cloud. So he describes it as like a huge torus kind of thing, but he can't fly under it and he can't fly over it. But luckily, like this break, like a hole opens up in it. So he flies into that. And I suppose it's really the description that's kind of interesting. It's a 200 feet in diameter, and it appeared that it was only a mile long, I think he says. So, yeah, hang on, let's see. Yeah, you can see small lines of grey cloud which spiraled in an anti-clockwise direction around the interior of the tunnel. And so they were only traveling through the tunnel for 20 seconds before they emerged from the other end.
Oh, it's like a wormhole? Is it?
Yes, this is the concept. This is all like, it's essentially a story from kind of Bermuda Triangle. So we would have to, I don't know if this is true or not, but this is the man's account of what happened. 5 seconds. I remember being sort of convinced by it. I thought there was a ring of truth to it. So, but basically what happens is that he should have been like way off Miami, but they got contacted straight away by the Miami radar controller, who said that they were just so Bruce thought they should be 45 miles southeast of Bimini, but they were actually just, I think they were like really close to Miami Beach or something. So he was like, there's no way they could have traveled to Miami Beach in that amount of time. Like they were only in the air for 35 minutes. and they, it would have taken a lot longer to get to Miami Beach from Bimini. So that was it. So Gurnan had never made it from Andros Beach to Palm Beach in less than 75 minutes. So that gives you an idea of how quickly he arrived. But just before they came out of the tunnel, he said that the kind of cloud broke apart and formed these straight lines. And that's kind of what we see here again in the form constants we were talking about earlier. So that's kind of a working into the vortex and the torsion physics. If torsion physics is meant to be able to travel much faster than the speed of light, then it might explain how he was kind of dragged along in space and time. So I thought boiling it down, the account of the rotating cloud tunnel, Gurnan's perception of an increased forward momentum upon entering the tunnel, a strange grey-white mist that enveloped the plane, and the manner in which this electric fog broke apart. So all of those also connect back to kind of visions that you'd see, patterns in the mind, form constants.
It kind of makes sense of what John was talking about, the oscillating universe, where it contracts and expands.
Maybe the motion, do you mean, or how do you?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So there was another issue here about so in terms of like perceptual experiments using different kind of chemical
for a period of time is expanding, for a time is contracting.
Which is expanding, which is contracting?
The universe. So I don't know whether that affects this one, but
I don't. That seems like on a maybe too large a scale, but it's a fascinating idea. I like the idea of the the kind of bouncing universe, but in terms of temperature, it's a cool idea.
Yeah. Whether it will have a local effect, that's the thing.
Would it have a local effect? Jeez, I'm sure it would, but wouldn't it be going over like such a large span of time that it really wouldn't affect us as humans?
The quantum, the only thing is quantum knowledge. See, what happens is something happens, the quantum says if something happens away, it can affect the local thing because the wave functions, they're quantum entangled somehow. Then they can, they can go through another dimension and connect that. And although it happens somewhere else, it can affect the local thing. It may be something else may be happening light years away, but if it's quantum entangled, that can affect the local thing, even though they are light years apart.
Oh well, that's true. But I mean, an entanglement. Okay, well, I mean, even if you listen to Stephen Wolfram's work at the present, do you ever listen to his live CEOing episodes? And then they talk a lot. Yeah, they're big into these graphs, aren't they?
Yeah.
And causal space and branchial space, and so branchial space is like, as far as I can make out, it's the entanglement between different causal spaces which aren't related because they're outside of each other's light cones or something like that. So I think it's a bit of a strange idea. I suppose it would make sense that you could have particle in one area of causal space which is tangled with another that doesn't get disentangled because the two can never interact or something. But usually entanglement is
that's why a functor is useful thing, I think, to understand that.
Well, sure, certainly a functor being it's part of category theory.
Yeah, but although they are functors, like I said before, can be connected to a functional like time or gravity. So that can create these kind of entanglement or decoherence. You can do both depending on how the functional works and the clocking mechanism inside the functor. I like it. I think it explains a lot of things, but eventually, once we have the program, then we can start figuring out those things. But you explain here, complex plane is indispensable for mapping 2D wave functions application of fractal-based mathematics.
Absolutely, yeah. That's something that's well known. It's quite a fundamental property. It gets a little bit more complicated as it goes along. But basically what this was looking at was perceptual effects of different compounds. In this case, I think it was sativa or indica or something like that, where like you'd be looking at the sky and people see like the moon just starts dancing around the sky, you know, like moving all over the place, or all the stars just look like they're falling out of the sky over and over and over again. So I kind of looked into that, where we had like a huge spider web of like luminous threads that was spanned out over the entire sky. So you could like lie underneath it and look at the sky with this grid pattern, which was also a form constant, but that just happened. That was just coincidental. And when you did that and saw the stars falling out of the sky, what I noticed was that the parts of the web was disappearing. So like entire like slices of the web would disappear, and all of the information on one side of the web would slide over to fill in that gap. That's what was causing the apparent motion, which is a torsional field vortex. So in a sense, maybe what drives this vortex spin is a loss of information.
Actually, there was another theory other than the normal orbital motion of the planets. There was another people said that it's actually they are not orbiting. Earth is not. It's actually a vortex action. It's actually they're moving close towards each other, moving towards each other. It's like a vortex action. It's happening rather than just a circular motion. There was a theory. Forgot some time ago. It's a hyperloop theory or something. So
interesting. I wonder how. I understand, like, you know, if you imagine like water going down a plug hole or something, and so all water's flowing into the sun, and the planets are just caught rotating.
Very similar to what John was talking about the elliptic objects and the spiral galaxies, right? Spiral galaxy.
So, a little bit, but actually,
he gave an analogy of how the water will flow into the thing from outside to inside.
Yeah, but oddly enough, like the water's coming out of the spiral galaxies in that.
Water like it's an analogy. The analogy of the water going.
Absolutely. So this is my concept anyway, that what is creating rotation in these systems could be like a loss of information, which I can now demonstrate in a mathematical setting, but this was just to talk about like the complex logarithm. So, you know, when you get into Riemann surfaces, they also have this kind of
you say that the information can disconnect it and you can connect it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I'll show you now exactly what I mean. So I need to stop that and I need to share. I think it's this. I don't know. Let's see. Yeah, so if I go in here, so you can see this graph has. So let's say this is like the spider web in a sense, but it's a radial graph, and we have 12 roots of unity all around here. So if let's say we want to get rid of so we lose some information. We're going to lose from up to 60 degrees. So we will just run that, and the information is gone, right? But because nature abhors a vacuum, this entire section here is going to slide over and fill this in. And the way it's going to do that is because this is roots of unity, which is also very similar to modular forms. This is just going to become 0 or 360 degrees. So we can do that by simply removing the 2 that we'd lost already. So this is where we get the kind of idea that no information is being lost. We'll have a, oh, wait a second. Hang on. I did something wrong there, did I? This works here?
Is it something similar to information paradox?
Not quite. This is going to be, maybe I've, oh, what happened there? Oh, wait a second. Of course, I forgot to remove. That was where the missing information went. So now we're back to.
Oh, okay.
But now we have like 10 points. But there's no longer any missing information here because we have 36 degrees and we have 72, and all the information, all the degree information that we were missing is now returned, and therefore the system can reappraise itself as our 12 roots of unity again. So we're back to where we started, and then it loses the information again, and then it keeps switching between mod 12 and mod 10, let's say, back and forth, losing information, filling in the gaps, and then forgetting that it's done that, and the system closes back up, becomes the whole system again. So it's a bit like we keep zooming into the same area of space over and over and over again. But you know, it's a mathematical model, which I thought.
You heard about the broken telephone network, right? The problem of.
No, I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is. So if you could explain to me, I'd be interested to hear that. Is it like
as it passes through? Yeah.
Oh, you've
somebody did.
You keep. I think it may be American Whispers or something. There's another name.
See, somebody did an experiment. He put up a group of people, and he gave some information to one person at one end, right? And this person, and they will pass on the information. At the end of the loop, end of the that particular group, the information get totally transformed or modified, or totally different information. You give a bit of information, and the information is not the same at the end of the loop.
Yeah.
So that's called the broken telephone network problem.
Oh, right. Yeah. It's also called Chinese whispers.
Yeah.
That's
they're different things. Yeah.
And I was calling it American Whispers there. So somebody obviously changed the name at some point. But this is like a time. Maybe that was me. Just anyway. So the time. This is kind of meant to be like time. So time is progressing because of a loss of information, and and the universe is like trying to fill in the information all the time. Every time it does, it's. But this scenario, I'm suggesting, it seems a bit contrived. So I would suggest that the whole system of time is contrived. Now, this is kind of probably going outside the realm of physics, and apologize for that. But so in some sense, and this is kind of based on the work of Philip K. Dick, who's a science fiction writer. So, you know, you can take this with a bit of grain of salt, but like time is artificial in a sense. Like
it's mathematical, right? Mathematical.
No, I'm suggesting
mathematical concept.
This is a mathematical concept, which was initially I was kind of developing for just like how to model torsion spin based on previous research I'd done. But I was also thinking that it could be a model for how time operates. So time flows in a direction because it's trying to recapitulate lost information, but that loss of information is a condition that has been put in place initially by something, you know.
Can you see information as an event? So we can say, okay, how the event progresses, the time progresses, in the sense that the time marks the progress of the event, progression of the event. So that's what information is. Can we say that?
I'm not sure in this model, because, well, you have a loss of information and then like the motion, the
so
move.
some code is taking care of that, right? some code is detecting the loss of information, and the time comes in, something like that?
Actually, not really, because what happens is the information is just lost, so the system collapses to fill it in. It's just like if you were standing on a chair and the chair vanished, you'd fall to the ground. It's the same principle here. There cannot be any gaps.
So physics takes over, kind of.
Yeah, and then because this whole thing is like, this is very similar to a mod 12 system. The 0 and the 12 are both zeros. So then when that collapses, even though it collapses to something with like only 9 points or 10 points, it's still perfectly 360 degrees. So then the system just resets and says, well, since this is exactly the same condition that we had previously, it is the same. And then it just resets back to mod 12. That kind of fluctuating back between.
So some kind of communication is going on for it to recognize that, right?
Or zero communication. It's kind of like with Roger Penrose's theory, where because there's nothing in the universe decides to just reset itself. It's like reaches a condition where it there's no longer any matter in the universe, so the universe thinks, oh, nothing exists, and then it just restarts.
That because of symmetry, maybe.
Yeah. So I think this is a kind of a symmetric model. I haven't written any notes down on this, so because it's kind of new. I just thought about it when I was walking, trying to.
Noether's theorem of symmetry, for example.
Yeah, that's like way out of my league, that theory. But this is more like just a very simple concept that by losing the information, it's restored to the system without any effort, because it was never missing, in a sense.
It makes sense for chiral symmetry, Suppose my hand is this thing. It recognizes something is lost because it knows that there has to be another chiral thing, conjugate thing, symmetry to that. There has to be this one. So it knows that. It knows that something is missing. So it tries to fill in and it'll pull that back up. Something like that. The left-handed and right-handed.
Yeah, maybe something a bit like that. Like it needs the symmetry, because this is now 0, so the 0 needs to be here in order for that to be symmetric. So it just, everything moves over, which could be like, if you were thinking about this from a Riemannian geometry perspective, it would mean that the whole kind of helix of manifold will just like rotate, which means that new information is coming in from the bottom here. But I think of it more as a kind of a stretching. So you could kind of, it's a fun system to play around with, because you could take obviously like a tiny differential or infinitesimal here and stretch it around the whole thing. There's things you could do with it, and then find like the limit of the system, like how fast does this collapse? Does it always collapse at the same speed? It's a constant, let's say, or it could expand. So if you like add information to it, then it's going to move the opposite direction, which would be like this way. It's a positive particle. Adding information means that it's a negative particle, like
okay.
Stuff like that, kind of looking at
that makes positive and negative, so it recognizes and try to fill in that. Okay.
Yeah, so I did write some notes on this, but I'd have to look them up. But yeah, so that was one thing. And then other research I've done into that's kind of the end of that talk, really. But I was just going to go back to what you were saying about of functors and functionals and connecting things, and well, why not use some of these forces that Alexi was talking about, co-gravitational and I think he had a number.
The four forces, four things.
Yeah. So you could use those, and then I remember I was talking about he was showing.
Actually, he talks about 5-1. The elastic one also he talks, the 5th one, right?
Yeah, that's part of that would be inside a material like a crystal.
Subsystems, he calls it subsystems.
Yeah, it's interesting. So when I was he was showing those different images of, like, I suppose, machines that have been developed behind the Iron Curtain, like, which is kind of interesting. So machines that were supposed to be there to develop to measure torsion fields, and they
torsionists or something he called them.
Yeah. It's the torsional fields. So as Alexi would say. So, but then I was showing the book on dowsing, and how, like, they're pretty much doing the same thing. Like, if you look at the torsion physicists, they're kind of like they have like strings, wooden frames suspended by strings over images, and like the light coming off the images causes the object to rotate, which is very similar to what happens in dowsing or pendulum work. So I've gone out and like I said, we didn't use pendulums or dowsing. We just would sense the forces with our own physical human body, and that worked very well because they actually give off positive or negative energies. Like, you feel healthy, you feel sick.
Yeah, you said that in near your place in Dublin, there is a place where you go, you can feel the energy sapping out from you and things like that.
Right, but you can even do that where you live. Like, I could just go out to my back garden and walk around, and you'll feel these points, but they're like very specific spots in the ground. And that's exactly what it showed in that dowsing book as well. But like, usually dowsing talks about lines, but in fact, I found that they are just points. And so what I did, I was working with another physicist guy from France, and he's big into electromagnetics. And he was out with me one day, but he was also interested in this kind of, would you call it, like, parapsychological and those kind of paranormal things. So he was interested in both. But so we were out there, and we were kind of like measuring the angles between these points on the ground and trying to draw up a map of the points. So that you'd wind up with a geodesic kind of grid, or like what do you call it? Like a
geomagnetic. Is it like geomagnetic?
Like a finite element grid. Once you map it out, it's going to be like edges and vertices, and each of the points will have like positive, negative, neutral, and then you have the angles between them. And then I think that could be an interesting area of research. So I'm going to continue with that, but I think it could link maybe into what you're doing.
Yeah. Because
and also then it would be cool to
similar to, you can apply it, makes it easier programming probably.
Yeah, because it'd be great to do like a finite element model of that maybe, and then expand it using maybe machine learning to see if could a computer guess where the next point will be?
Exactly.
That'd be funny. So
I wouldn't be surprised if you need that, because that explains why we had to go to more and more complex systems, and finally into quantum computing. It automatically starts to make sense, because when we start building up these things, automatically we have to have these things, supercomputers and then quantum computers. So it'll make right now there is no particular rationale why we need that, but I think this will automatically give the rationale why we need them, because we go into details. We need these things. We have to build up, so that we reduce the assumptions close to zero. That's my idea. The only thing that finally is the Helmholtz decomposition fields. That's the only thing it depends on, and the matrix properties. From mathematics, just the matrix properties. From the physics, just the decomposition fields, Helmholtz decomposition. Everything else is built from that. That's what I want to see.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's very different. I think your kind of thing is like on a very small scale, obviously,
Yeah.
And the work I just talking about there is on a, is on a
Mesoscopic.
it's fun to like work at this level as well and do some experiments.
Oh yeah, because that's easily observable. Whereas microscopy is more, speculate. I mean, more our mind. We are just thinking out like speculation to start with.
Yeah. This was another thing I did. I found a lot of crystals on this. I used to go looking for crystals and I find quartz crystals, So there's also this kind of idea in parapsychology where you can like charge crystals.
Oh yeah, people use what you call the crystal balls type thing. It's called crystal ball, right?
Right. Well, that's
the astrologers use that.
Back in the day, yes. So that was a big thing in divination. You'd have like a crystal ball. There's one in the museum in Dublin, and basically it was like an important object for healing and for seeing into the future and all of this.
So, like witches, previously the witches tried to, use the crystal ball to see and manipulate things.
Exactly like
the dark ages or something.
Exactly like what I was saying with the Mesoamerican Indians and their black obsidian
magic. Black magic? Is it black magic?
Well, yeah, but I was just talking about the mirrors, these black mirrors. They look into it and see the mists and all of that. Well, like what I'm getting at though is like if you leave like those crystals or anything, like I was also using coins, just ordinary coins, and leaving them. So you leave one in a neutral place, you leave one in a positive place, and then flick them to see if it altered the numbers of heads and tails.
I have actually experienced some interaction which you cannot explain. I think maybe our thing only explain two things. One of them is the, something moving there affecting something else. I have seen this as a boy. Yeah. Then another thing I have seen, and I operated this one. I think it's called the some kind of a wheel, witchy wheel or whatever. So you ask questions, you put some things, and you do something, and then you say ask questions. It will go around and answer the questions. I don't know what it is. I mean, there's nothing physical connecting it. Some paraform. I did myself along with the family, but I was the operator. Somebody taught me how to do that, so I did that in the sea glass, and you put it, and we call it mantra or some kind of thing that you tell to it, and then it starts activating like vibration, and then you ask questions. It'll go around answering the questions. I still cannot say what can do this one.
Is that a bit like a word?
Yeah, it's paranormal phenomena. So I don't know, aliens. I don't know what it is.
Is it? Anyway, so that's interesting.
So John, you said you are retired. Are you in your 60s or 70s?
You're on again.
John, are you able to?
I got to unmute my mic.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I leave it off because of the noise in the background.
Oh, okay, no problem. Thanks. You said you are retired. John, you said you are retired. Are you in your 60s or 70s?
I'm 79.
Oh, 80. So yeah, and then Christopher is 40s. I am the 60s.
Well, 38.
38. Okay.
I think.
So I am the 60s. So you are this close to 80, 70s, late 70s. Okay.
Yes, and Lexi's in his 50s, I think. Is he?
Ah. So we have all the different generations. And when sang, maybe like 50s, 50s.
Who?
When sang.
Oh yeah, Wenzong is gone.
Yeah, he may be in the 50s probably, or 60s.
He may have dropped out during my talk, but that's okay, Wenzong.
Yeah, because it's late for him now. It's late for him.
Yeah, it's like 12:30 here, so I am also going to have to depart. So,
okay. So we'll all see you, John. Nice to see you, and we hope to see you every Saturday, John.
Well, I will be. Thanks for having me, folks.